From monsters and ghosts to otherworldly beings, join the Explorers as they venture into the darkest realms, seeking the truth to what goes bump in the night.
Good evening and welcome to Explorers Seekers of the Truth, episode 24. Tonight, as always, I am Chad Charlesworth, and I'm joined by my best friend and co-host, Les Sinkavich. How are you doing tonight, Les?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking. Tonight we are on our 24th episode, and we're really excited about tonight's show as we're going to discuss some personal experiences with a property that both Chad and I, that Chad owns, and I actually lived there along with him when we were in college. We lived in this this building. But before we begin, I want to remind everyone how you could get in touch with us tonight. You could comment on the live chats. BeLive has a great feature where if you comment under the chat section on the Facebook page, it'll pop up and we could communicate that way. So that's kind of neat. And we also have other ways you could get in touch with us at our website, www.explorersgroup.com. As always, we're on Twitter at Explorers Group, obviously on Facebook, facebook.com/Explorers Group. We're on Instagram. You could get to our YouTube channel through our Facebook page, or I mean our website on the live shows. I'm sorry. But we're on iTunes, Stitcher, and everywhere else. So, you know, if you're out and about and you want to listen to us, you can find us on iTunes and on Stitcher, which I think works better with Android applications. I don't know. I'm an Apple guy. I'm a Mac guy. So,
yeah, I have it on my iPhone, but I really haven't used it. So, but
yeah, I just use iTunes. I don't really use anything else for music and audio. But
yeah, I know they're talking about doing away with iTunes.
Jesus. Of course. We finally get on it and they're going to take it down.
Well, we'll still be available through like the music portion. They're just kind of shifting the branding with stuff at Apple. There's a rumor I heard. I don't know how true it is.
Yeah.
So tonight's going to be, a little bit different. Like Les said, we're going to be discussing a property that I have come to own over the years, and Les and I have lived in. And I'd like to preface this by kind of saying I'm not saying that all of these stories are 100% paranormal. There are, in a lot of cases, there are some reasonable explanations that if you sit down and start really delving into it, you can convince yourself that they are, valid reasons that these things are happening. But, I just want to preference that, not saying that we're saying all this is, 100% paranormal. There are some reasonable explanations for some of it. So, it's kind of more or less some, ghost stories about the property or paranormal stories about the property. Like Les has said, we had lived there in college, and I kind of have to start the stories a little bit about 4 or 5 years before Les and I move in. And my family actually came to own this property, and we had bought it at an estate sale. Family, it was a father, son, and mother had lived in the house. The mother and father had since passed. The son was older and didn't want the responsibilities of a house. It is a four-bedroom, big house. It's one of those houses that have like a servant staircase, a servant's entrance, and the main entrance and stuff like that. As I say all that, the house is not as grand as that sounds. It's a very old house. It was built in the 1800s. And my father had, purchased a house. And what we had purchased it for originally was for our family business to take it over for an office space for the growing business. And when we first got it, we didn't even change the locks on the property. So my dad goes in to start remodeling it. He opens up the main door, which opens up onto the grand staircase. When he opens the door, he turns and looks, and he sees this little old man standing on the stairs. And he goes, "Sir, can I help you?" And the person doesn't acknowledge him. Mm-hmm. So, for people who know us or have met my dad, back then he was almost about 6'3", probably anywhere from 245 to 300-pound power lifter police officer. And he was a large man. Mm-hmm. So he looks at the person again, and this time a little bit louder. He says, "Sir, can I help you?" And yet again, there's no acknowledgement of, somebody talking. Mm-hmm. So he figures, it's a little old man. He's probably hard of hearing, maybe hearing aids, something like that. And he figured it was actually like a friend of the family who had owned it previously. Like I said, we didn't even change the locks at this point.
Right.
So he thought, oh, maybe the old man had a key. Maybe he didn't hear that his friend had passed away and he had just come to visit and let himself in. So he goes to turn on the light switch, which turns the chandelier at the bottom of the steps and the light on in the hallway above it on. So he goes to flick the switch. He flicks the switch, and as he turns back around, the guy is gone. Mm-hmm. Now, again, remember, this is a little old man. So at that point, there was only the grand staircase, and the servants' staircase was the only way to go from upstairs to downstairs. There was no second floor exit from the house at that point.
Right.
So he runs the hallway that trims along the grand staircase. He runs down that hallway and opens the door to the servants' staircase, figuring he might, see the little man coming down the steps. Doesn't see him, so he runs up the steps. He, like I also said, you got to understand, my father was a police officer from 1970 until like about 91 or 92 before he retired. So he had 20 years in law enforcement at that point. And he goes about clearing the upstairs, figuring, oh, little old man probably just, he missed him somewhere along the way getting up the steps and going down the hallway. So he goes up, he checks the entire upstairs, can't find any trace of the guy. Mm-hmm. So this is legitimately within 3 or 4 days of taking over ownership of the property. The other thing I got to say is my father to this day does not believe in ghosts. He has never believed in ghosts. He does not believe in any of the paranormal stuff whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And yet, in fact, for years, he actually told this story as it not being him who saw the person when people would ask about it. And later on admitted to us that, yeah, when I bought the house, that's what I saw. Mm-hmm. So
now, why did he not say that he saw it? Was it more because he just didn't want to keep talking about it, or he just...
Well, I think, first of all, like, he had 20 years of law enforcement, mm-hmm. and, he was a respected businessman in the area. Plus, he was also, around that time, he was on the borough council for the town where the house is, mm-hmm. and had run for sheriff at that point. He had, maybe a year or two after that, he had run for sheriff of the county. Mm-hmm. So I think it was more or less one of those things like, I don't want to be associated with that nonsense or people thinking it was me, or, saying, oh, we can't vote for this guy. He's he thinks there's ghosts in his house.
Right.
It was the 90s. It wasn't the, late 2000s and currently where we have, stuff like this on Facebook where we're talking about ghost stories and Bigfoot and stuff like that. And
paranormal stuff is more commonplace now.
Yeah. So I think it's a lot more acceptable now. Mm-hmm. Later when he finally did admit to us that it was him who saw it, that was already at the point where you and I had been investigating for a few years. Mm-hmm. And the fact that as we go through this, you folks will hear a whole bunch of stories about this house. At a certain point, I don't think he could no longer deny that there was something going on with the house.
Right.
So I think he eventually just kind of owned up to what he had seen. So now the second story is a story that happened to my sister, and I happened to be witness to this story. And my sister had moved in to the house and was living on the second floor. And I was, my parents are divorced they divorced when I was a child. So I used to have weekends, every other weekend with my dad. And it was a weekend I was staying at my dad's house. And my dad's house is legitimately one street back from this house on an angle. And the house that used to sit in between the two houses was torn down years ago. So you can legitimately see my dad's house from the front window of this house. And in the middle of the night, my sister calls my dad's house, and I'm staying there for the weekend. And I pick up the phone, and she's like, "Get Dad." And I'm like, "What?" And I mean, this is like middle of the night. I'm a teenager. She's like, "Get Dad now." And I'm like, "Okay." So I run to my parents, my dad and my stepmother's room, and I knock on the door, and my dad says, "What?" And I'm like, "Tara's on the phone for you." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Your daughter's on the phone for you. She sounds like something's wrong." So he grabs the phone quick that they had in their bedroom. He's like, "Yeah, what's going on?" And she relays a story that she thinks somebody's in the house. She doesn't hear.
Now, she was staying in the house, right? She was living in the. I might have missed it, but Tara was living in the haunted house, right? The purchased house.
Yeah, she was living on the second floor.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And now the house we were still remodeling the property and the inside and stuff like that, putting drop ceilings in. So she calls, she talks to my dad after I had answered the phone, and she says, my dad says to me, he goes, "Well, come on, you're coming with me over to the house." And I'm like, "Okay, why?" And he's like, I'm a teenager at that point. Sleep is more important than, people's well-being to me.
And at that age, you're angsty. You don't want to do anything with your parents,
Just a little bit. Yeah. I just wanted to sit in my bedroom by myself, a teenage boy bedroom by himself. But so we go over, and I basically go through the servant's entrance, which is a small hallway that runs between the main part of the house and the house next door. So I go through that door. My dad goes through the front door, and we proceed to start clearing the house. Clearing the house in the sense of looking for somebody, looking for stuff out of place, and
not cleansing with smudge sticks and feathers.
No, clearing as in the sense of like a law enforcement or military sense of the word clearing.
Right.
And we clear the whole first floor. So as I said in the first story, this is at the point where the house does not have an exit from the second story. You would have to go downstairs to exit the house. So
it used to have that enclosed balcony in the back, right? That basically like a greenhouse.
It had like that,
windows,
the sun porch type, it was like kind of like almost like a shed on the ground floor, and then a sun porch on the second floor. But it was all
that was really beautiful.
Yeah, it was just falling down though. And so we go upstairs, and when you get to the top of the stairs, it's two staircases. It's the master staircase and then the smaller servant staircase, and it comes up to a landing. Now, when you get to the landing, if you're facing the wall in front of you, that would lead you to the hallway. To your left is a bedroom. In front of you, slightly to your left, would be a bathroom. To the right slightly and in front of you would be a bedroom. And then there's 2 bedrooms to the front of the house. It's an L-shaped hallway at that point, and a long closet off the one bedroom. So we go.
If you don't mind me, don't. If I could jump in for 1 second, just to kind of give the listeners a little bit of a perspective on this house. Like Chad said, it's very old. It was, built in the 1800s, and I don't know if many listeners out there are familiar with what row homes are. They're commonplace. We're from the coal region of Pennsylvania, so a lot of what they called patch towns or coal towns would have row homes, which is basically an entire block, which were houses that were sandwiched together. It wasn't single homes. It was an entire block of one giant home, but they were segmented into individual houses. So this house was kind of sandwiched in between a bunch. So there were no windows on the side, only in the front and in the back of the house where there's windows. And the interior of this house, the house was huge. And it was very dark because of the fact that there were no side windows other than the windows in the front and in the back. And it had a lot of really old, dark, stained woodwork throughout the entire house. And in the first floor, there were 3 rooms, and they were separated by these big, giant, beautiful, solid oak pocket doors. And then, like Chad said, there was the servants' hallway, which was very, very narrow. So and I'm just kind of recollecting some of the memories that I had when I lived there with Chad. It was very dark. Even when you had the lights on, there were so many shadows in that house and so many dark areas. It was very ominous and very creepy when you would go in there, and you always had a feeling like you were being watched no matter where you were in that house. And like he was saying about the staircases, the servant staircase went in at kind of like maybe 3 steps and then kind of angled its way up. It was very narrow, very difficult to get through. So when he's telling this story, you got to keep in mind that, like I said, there was an old galley kitchen downstairs that was very, very like the servant's kitchen. It was just pocketed off to the side. There were many, many little narrow nooks and crannies in this house that somebody could have hidden or whatever. And then, like you said, the upstairs, there was the back bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen, and then 2 rooms in the front, and they had that L-shaped hallway, and it went back to a big that was a walk-in closet, right? That was at the end by your old room, because it went back almost.
It was like a long walk-in closet back there.
Yeah, and like I said, it's very dark and very, very creepy. So go ahead.
Yeah. As we check all the rooms upstairs, check the closets. Each room has its own, decent sized closet in it. Mm-hmm. So we check the closets, we check, the bathroom, the kitchen, basically check this entire house. There are 3 people in this house: my sister, my father, and myself. Mm-hmm. And at this point, we get to my sister's door, and we, let her know it's us, to open the door. And she opens the door, and we're like, we went through the whole house. The doors were locked when we got there, didn't see anything out of place. And she's like, I don't know how to explain this. And I don't know if anybody's ever put in drop ceilings. So we were in the process of putting drop ceilings in when she moved. Because of it being an old house, the insulation in the walls is terrible, and it had super high ceilings at that point in a lot of the rooms. So my dad had decided to help with the heating of the house and to actually redo the wiring for the house to put drop ceilings in. And she's like, I don't know how to explain this to you. And we're like, well, what? And she's like, well, come in my room. So we're both, we all walk into a room, we're standing there, and we're like, okay, what's going on? She goes, okay, ready? And we're like, yeah. And she flicks the light switch to turn the lights off. And through the pilot hole in the on the wall, there is a light shining through to her bedroom. So my dad says, how long has this been going on? She goes, it started about an hour before I called. She goes, and it has been on consistently since then. So, my dad's thinking, oh, it's just a light in one of the other rooms that must be shining through this pilot hole. So the next room over from her bedroom is the bathroom. So we go over, turn off the light in the bathroom, walk into her bedroom, turn out her light. The light's still there. So my dad goes, okay, so it's not the bathroom. So leave that light off, go to the kitchen, flick the kitchen light on, and then turn it off. So I go over, turn it on, turn it off. It's still, her room's dark. There's still a light shining through the pilot hole. So he's like, well, it can't be the front two bedrooms because that would, the way the light would have to travel to get to that hole would be around corners. And it looked like somebody was holding a flashlight on the other side of the pilot hole and it was shining in like that. So, we checked every light in the house. So he's like, maybe it's a light in the attic. Maybe there's a light up there, and when I was working on the breakers and stuff like that, maybe I turned it on, maybe it was off. So, of course, it's one of those old, scary attics that you have to pull the steps down to you and stuff like that. So he's like, again, like I said, my dad was a big guy at the time. He's like, okay, go on up. See if there's a light up there. So, of course, there I am. I'm a teenager. I'm still little. So I go up the steps. I look around. I'm like, Dad, there's no light on up here. And he's like, I don't know where this light. He started looking for like a flashlight, anything that maybe got left somewhere, on the wall or on top of the shower in the bathroom. Can't find it. We're standing there for a couple minutes and we're trying to figure this out. And all of a sudden, light disappears. Gone. No clue where it was coming from. No, tried reasonably explaining where the light was coming from, could never do it. Years later, before I boarded the attic closed, I went upstairs and checked the attic. There is not even a light unit or wiring in the attic for a light. So, we never figured out where that light came from. It only ever happened that one night. But it, like, you would turn the light off and it was like somebody was holding a flashlight up to the hole. Like almost like somebody was like peeking in the hole to see or trying to show you where the hole would be as you're trying to run wire. And to this day we've never figured that one out.
That's weird.
Yeah, like reasonable explanation. I'm sure somebody could come up with something that would make sense, but I was there. We tried every light that was on that floor. There was no way it was a light from downstairs shining through a hole. The ceilings were 12 foot. We dropped them down to 8. So this hole was probably about 10 foot up. So it wasn't a light from downstairs. It wasn't a light from that floor. It wasn't a light from the floor above it. To this day, we've never figured that one out.
That is bizarre. Now, it's not, there was, I'm wondering if there was like a window that, because I remember there was a lot of street lights, and didn't that one neighboring house have one of those big kind of like incandescent lights that would come on after dark, like kind of like a street light, but it was attached to the house? And you think there's any way that would be in?
Which side? If you're
facing the back of the house to the left.
From the street on the backside, or from like your bedroom looking left or right?
If I'm standing on the street looking down at the house, it was the house to the left.
Okay. At that point, no.
No. Okay.
No, at that point there wasn't a light there, but yes, there was a light at it years later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that light wasn't there. And also back then, that was when the sun porch was still there, and that the way that angle would have been at that time, even if that light was there, it would have been on the side of the sun porch that was a solid wall.
Yeah.
And this light,
where was the light coming
was from the bathroom side in.
Oh, then I'm stumped.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a reasonable explanation, I'm sure somebody out there could, sit down and give me something that would be believable, to what happened there. But I was there. We tried every light on that floor, and it was coming from inside the house to the last room in the house. So, at that point, again, it happened one time and then never happened again. Now, of course, within a few weeks, we put the drop ceilings in. So we would have never seen it if it happened again, because it would have been through the pilot hole, which is, above the drop ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
But that, we never figured that one out.
Right.
As people were helping my dad do work on this, a few of his employees were helping, do some of the remodel on the place.
Right.
And one of his employees, guy by the name of Wayne, was running some wires and stuff like that, was up on a ladder. And Wayne's up on this ladder, and he said, I'll give you the story of how it happens first. Wayne's up on a ladder, and he says, basically he's up there working, and he turned and looked down because he heard somebody like walking up to the ladder. So he thought it was like one of us kids or my dad or somebody, my stepmother or somebody walking up to him to see if, if he needed anything. And he turns and he says, I looked down, and there was this person standing there, just like a little, old person, just looking at me. And he's like, I didn't recognize the person. And he was like, so I just kind of turned back to continue working. And he goes, I was doing something, and I turned back around, and there was nobody there. And that was in the hallway next to the grand staircase. So that's a very narrow hallway. And there's only, you either had to go past the ladder and would have bumped the ladder to get out through the front, or have walked back towards the dining room through the door. And he said it was just an old person. He said he never recognized the person, and just kind of, looked at the person, and it wasn't necessarily like looking out the corner of your eye. Like he said, I physically turned and looked right at the person eye to eye. And he goes, I didn't recognize him. He goes, I didn't know if it, it was somebody in your family or something like that. So I just went back to work for a minute because they didn't say nothing. And he said he turned around again, they were gone. Now, his son, myself, my dad, and one of the other employees were actually in between the galley kitchen and the dining room at that point, which is the only exit from the hallway. In that small hallway that runs next to the stairs. So the person would have had to come out towards us, and none of us remember seeing anybody come out, through that hallway. So, that was another weird. And then that again was another old person, like physical, looking at somebody who looks like an old person, not, oh, I thought I saw somebody, or, it was, it sounded like somebody. This was physically people looking at somebody. And Wayne actually also was a police officer at one point. So, another person with, level of credibility.
Right, where they would view things in a different way than a normal person.
Yeah. So that kind of covers a lot of the stories that I had, personal involvement with before we move in. Now we're getting into the stories when Les and I move into the house. And at that point, my dad had moved his business back to the building that he had first, it was another building our family owned. and he had moved the office back down to this house, and the other house that we're speaking of was empty at the time. So I have a falling out with my mom, and I decide to go live in the old house. I just happened to have a key to the house because at one point it was the office and stuff like that. So I basically moved into a house by myself in the middle of the night and told my dad like 2 days later I was living in the house. I just kind of moved in. Like, Dad, by the way, yeah, I'm staying in the house. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I had a fight with Mom and I decided I want to live on my own. And he's like, so you just moved into a house I own, like didn't say nothing? And I'm like, nope, just moved in. So, of course, I'm living in this house and I'm like, well, this is a really big house to live all by yourself in. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, gotta call my best friend. Hey, Les, I moved into the house in Minersville. Do you want to come live with me? And Les, now...
I was already standing out back behind the house saying, yeah, I'm already here. Open the door.
So, Les, it starts out like Les staying, and it's like, okay, Les, that's your bedroom. We start moving Les's furniture in. None of this helps.
Huh? Go ahead.
I was going to say, none of this helps those rumors about us.
Oh, no, not at all. It was a hetero love nest. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, though, this is back when he and I were both going to college together, so it only made sense because we carpooled all the time anyway. So it just was easier if we just stayed together and left together rather than having to drive to another person's house and, But and it was kind of our bachelor pad, too, because we were going through our college years and, we were free and finally out of high school, and it was awesome. It was a great time.
Yeah, and let's face it, how two 18-year-old males living in a 4-bedroom house that, had a gigantic dining room, a gigantic middle room, and a gigantic front room, all the ornate woodwork and stuff like that. We were living quite the life at that point.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, because like Chad said, with all the different rooms, and I had mentioned earlier, the first floor was partitioned into 3 big rooms. Like you would walk in the back, there was an open room. You could kind of go off to the left. They built a bathroom. Well, you guys built that bathroom, right? That wasn't there prior. I think that was.
No, there actually was. The toilet was there, and there actually was a long sink at one point, like an old porcelain sink that had like a one section inside that room, and then the other section was on that the bottom floor of the sun porch.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there was a bathroom there. We just remodeled it.
Off the bathroom was where the galley kitchen used to be, but when I moved in, it was just an empty storage space. And then the middle room from the back of the house, Chad was so kind to let me turn that, because when we were going to school, he was going for business management and I was going to get an art degree. And I turned that middle room into my art studio / music studio. And then the front room was our gym, because we had like a weight bench and dumbbells and whatnot. And we used to work out in there. Then the upstairs was basically our living quarters. I had my own room. He had his own room. We had a huge living room, kitchen, bathroom. Like it was awesome. And to kind of give everybody a little bit of an idea before we get into our stories, like Chad said, we were both 18. We were both in school. We both had tons of friends, and we were constantly active with our social lives and whatnot. And the house had a revolving door. Like literally every night there were different people coming and going. It would be the middle of the night. We'd be sleeping and people would just randomly show up. Sometimes we'd wake up in the morning and there'd be 2 or 3 people sleeping in the living room. And we're like, what the hell are you doing here? Oh, we had nowhere to go, so we figured you guys wouldn't care if we crashed. I'm like, well, you could tell us, you know? And the weird thing is we used to always lock the door, and I don't know how these people got in.
Well, there was the wrought iron on the front of the house, and certain people used to scale up that and open the window. That steeple, remember the steeple top used to be, and how it rounded out in the front. Certain people used to open that window. I mean, honestly, if the police ever drove by when somebody was doing,
I know how that pissed you off too, because remember you got in deep shit because they bent the railing.
Yeah, I mean, my parents were, pretty cool about letting us stay there and kind of have our own place and do our own thing. Mm-hmm. But my dad was also looking at it like, I own this building and it has nice features to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it ended up getting bent up.
Yeah, and the sad part
is he came over and unbent by hand.
The sad part is you and I took very good care of it. Me more so than you, I would say, because I was like, what your dad used to call me, Susie Homemaker or something like that, because I'd always clean the house, and then you would ruin it, you son of a bitch. But whatever. We took good care of the house.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, we took good care of the house. The house looked nice for two 18-year-old guys living in it.
Yeah, well, when we had ladies over, you got to impress,
Yeah, it was decorated.
They're not going to want to be around slobs.
Yeah, we had furniture and, stuff like that. We actually were doing pretty good at 18.
Yeah. We even decorated for Christmas, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
we even had a bird together.
I was going to say we had our first child together.
This is getting a little weird now. We were friends. That was it.
Yeah. We had separate bedrooms, I swear.
Yeah. We just stayed in one,
Well, honestly, a lot of the times we ended up sleeping in the living room because as these stories go, you'll find out that we both kind of started to have moments of not wanting to be alone in the house.
No, it was the only time I think that we actually slept in our rooms was during the day, because at night there were the things that would happen would just and not to sound like we were cowardly in any way, it was just you couldn't sleep.
Yeah that I was checking out comments as we were both going back and forth.
Dude, I swear you read my mind. I was just going to go into that.
We had
Can we mention the town and we'll just reference the house as?
Oh yeah. I think I've actually already said Minersville. It's Minersville, Pennsylvania. It's on Sunbury Street.
On the main street in Minersville.
On the main street. If anybody knows where my dad lives, they pretty much know where the house is. Then.
Well, I think most people that remember us know exactly where it is.
Yeah, so. Anybody that hung out with us between high school and college knows where the house is. And honestly, I wouldn't care. I own the house nowadays. It's mine. It's sitting empty. I wouldn't care. Put it this way. Anybody who's in Schuylkill County and drives on Sunbury Street in Minersville, I guarantee you, if you got out and I give you a 3-block radius of this house on Sunbury Street, I guarantee you will pick out the house on your own. Just by walking by it. You will pick out the house. I can almost guarantee it. And not from the description.
From the outside.
Yeah, not from the description we've given you. I would say this prior to us telling this tonight. I would guarantee if we did an experiment with people that have never heard this episode and we walked them down the street, I'd say a good 70% of the people would pick out the house on its own. It just has that kind of vibe to it. One of the things I was checking out the comments, I'm sorry guys, and we have, this is so awesome. We got somebody from Scotland.
Yes, I saw
we got
so
North Carolina.
Cool.
Cleo's on. Glad to see a lot of you regulars.
Cleo, you're from Alabama, right? Did she say she was from Alabama?
I believe, Cleo's from Alabama. So this is very awesome. Anybody else, let us know where you're from. It's kind of cool to see, where we're, reaching to. I know it's Facebook and anybody can hop on here, but it's pretty cool. Just like somebody from Scotland listening. That's so awesome. Someday I'm going to get there.
Me too. Yeah. So it'd be a dream come true.
So let's get into the pots and pans.
Okay.
This was within the first 2 nights that Les was living with me in the house. In the middle of the night, we heard from downstairs what sounded like somebody like cooking, and you know, like when you're boiling, like I always attribute it to if you're making noodles and you're boiling the water and the pot starts to like when it starts going and it's boiling and it kind of like taps and makes noise. And the sound of like somebody shuffling pans.
Yeah, that's the one I heard all the time. It sounded like somebody was going through a cabinet, pulling pans out, and you could hear the pans clink, 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 clinking together.
So in the middle of the night, we're hearing this. And of course, now, Les and I, being two guys, second night of living in this house, I mean, we're eating fast food and the takeout place down the street. We don't even really like have our kitchen set up going yet. And we're hearing this, and this is coming from downstairs. So like Les and I kind of like creep down the hallway because, again, like as I was explaining earlier, the two staircases, there's a landing at the top. So we walk down to the landing. We're both standing there looking at each other, and we're hearing the pots and pans sound.
Mm-hmm.
So we go, each one of us takes, different set of steps, and we go down the steps and we go downstairs, and we basically run into each other in the middle of the house. There's nobody down there.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day, I decide to stay home from, class in college, as, any college kid give me any reason to avoid going to class that day, and I would take it. So I decided, I know what I heard the night before. So I'm thinking, I am going to go through the old galley kitchen, which, like Les had said, is a storage room at this point. And I go through every box and bag. I go through the entire room. I rip everything open. I repackage everything. I put it all away. There wasn't a single pot or pan in any of the stuff in that room. In fact, we didn't even own a pot or pan at that point.
No, not at that time. No.
Yeah. And I mean, I went through, because I was thinking at that point, maybe there were some, pots or pans or something like that had been, stored in that room, and maybe there's mice or something. A cat maybe got in and was banging around, and it was making those noises we were hearing. I go through the entire thing. We didn't own pots or pans. Like, there was not a single pot or pan, and it wasn't the only time we heard those noises downstairs. There's a couple times, like, you would hear, like, somebody pulling a knife out of a drawer, like that.
Oh, yeah. That was the creepiest. That one. Well, first, like Chad was saying, with the pots and pans, we didn't own any at the time. And again, this was very early when we first started, living together in the bachelor pad. And the funny thing is that the sound was directly below the room that I was staying in. And what was really weird is the one night we heard it, we go downstairs, nothing, obviously, we didn't have any kind of cookware. We heard this noise, and do you remember we heard the noise again? We're standing in the room below my room, and we hear it again. And at the bottom of the servants' staircase, when you come down from where my room was, there was another door that led to the basement, and the basement was very, very small. Like you would have, it's a crawl space more or less, dirt floor, like really freaking old. Nobody, I don't even think there was nothing in there. It was just empty dirt floor. But we heard the pots and pans, remember, coming from the basement. Mm-hmm. And we were so freaked out. We didn't want to, we had to psych each other out to go down. And we're looking, and the place was completely empty. Nothing. It was just dirt. And I remember we just looked at each other like, all right, that's effed up. We both kind of we didn't know what to make of it, so we just more or less shrugged it off. All right, let's go back upstairs. So we both we go upstairs, and we're like, I know what we were both thinking. I didn't want to go back in my room. I know he didn't want to go back in his room. So we're like, well, we're up. You want to watch a movie? Well, yeah, let's watch a movie. Yeah, I'm not tired anymore. I'm not tired. So we both go in the living room, and that's when we had one movie. And a VCR, if anybody remembers those. It was Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. And we must have watched that movie 8,000 times to the point where the tape was ready to snap. But we're like, yeah, we went out in the living room. This is before we had cable and everything hooked up. We went out there and we watched that movie, and we both kept staring. Like you could see from the living room doorway, you could see down the hallway. And like I said, there's very little light that got into that place. And at night, it was just pitch black. And the whole night we're watching the movie, we're both kind of like eyeballing down the hallway, waiting to see something.
Mm-hmm.
So that night, it was just, and like you said too, even several nights after that, we would hear it. And I would say throughout the 2 years that we were there, it was probably 7 times we heard that noise.
Yeah, and it was
at least me that I remember.
Yeah, and it was always weird because it would be, it wasn't like a normal time that somebody would have been cooking. It was like late at night, like just random.
Yep.
It wasn't like, odd. Oh yeah, we were making, it sounded like, somebody making dinner or, around dinner time or breakfast or lunchtime. It was late, middle of the night. You would just hear pots and pans rattling around. You'd hear like silverware coming out of drawers, stuff shaking.
And even though they, like I had explained, they were row homes, there was, like Chad said, a servant's alley on the, like if you're facing the front of the house on the left side, there was an alley that went between the houses. So the houses on that side weren't technically connected. Now the houses on the other side were, but they were like 10-inch thick stone walls. Like you're not gonna.
Well, the house on the other side's not connected.
There's it's not. I thought they were. No. Oh, there is. Yeah, that's between the two. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. So neither house were connected. So it's not like you would hear the neighbors.
Yeah.
Kind of hammering through.
These are brick homes, so it's not like your kitchen from one home. You're not going to hear that in the house next door. And at that point, that room's not actually connected to the other house. The stairwell or the servant's entrance is connected, and that's only on the one wall is connected.
Yeah,
because my upstairs of that house goes over the servant's stairwell or servant's entrance, and that's the only part that's actually connecting to the neighbors.
Now it's funny. Cleo had posted a comment that she had someone call her name. This is where it gets a little weird. Should we? Oh, I guess that's the next in the list there.
It's actually the next one. Yeah.
All right. So this was, I would say, a couple months, 2 to 3 months into us being there, because this is when people knew we were living there together, and people started showing up more.
And we were sleeping in our own bedrooms.
yeah, more regularly. Excuse me. So we would always have people show up. And usually when people would show up, the back door of the house, like Chad had explained, when you first came in, there was a little mud room. Then there was another door to get into the house. And getting into that door was always such a pain because it would stick, and you would literally have to physically force that door open. And when you would do it, it would be like kind of like a you would hear like the door kind of rattle.
Yeah, and the wood floor kind of is buckled there. The planks are kind of buckled up, and it would catch that one plank all the time.
And when the door would kind of brush over, it would like reverberate through the door.
Yeah.
And again, that was right below my bedroom. So no matter when anybody came in, I always heard somebody coming in. So I'm lying there. I want to say it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm lying in bed, and I hear, the mudroom door open. Then I hear, like the doorknob rattling on the interior door. Then I hear the somebody slammed the door shut, because you had to slam that thing, and it banged. And I could hear a step coming up the servant's stair, and I'm kind of like freezing, tensing up. I'm like, what the hell is that? And then I heard somebody going, Les. And it sounded like my younger brother, because at that time he was kind of going through some he was married very early or very young, and they had a baby, So he was kind of going through some issues with his relationship, and every now and again he would come out and you know, hang with us. And I swear it was my little brother. It was my brother. Like, I can't explain it. It was his voice. It was distinct. Then it would take 1-2 steps. Les. I'm laying there. I'm like, what the fuck? Or what the heck, you know? And then I hear the comes all the way up the steps. And then when you would get to the landing at the top of the staircases, directly across from that was the entryway into the kitchen. Then there was the bathroom. Then at the end of the hall was, or it was maybe like a 15-foot stretch. And then there was my bedroom door. And again, every door in that house was solid oak. It had the old skeleton keyed locks and the old doorknobs. And the doorknobs were solid oak. Beautiful. Actually, if I could have taken those doors, I would have. But I heard somebody go into the kitchen and pull out the silverware drawer. And it sounded like somebody was pulling one of the cooking knives out. Like you could hear like that, just like that shing kind of sound, and like rooting and rummaging. Then I hear, you know, there's a knife being pulled out, and then boom, 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 coming down the hallway to my door. And at that point, my heart's in my, you know, beating out of my chest. I had a little twin bed, and I'm sitting up on the bed holding on to the sides. I'm shaking. I'm like, what the hell? So I start getting up because I'm thinking, well, if they're going to come in, I'm going after them. And at that time, you know, I was 18. I was a high school football player, as a lineman. Chad, we used to power lift all the time. I used to compete in school and whatnot. I was strong. I mean, I felt very capable of holding my own. And I was ready to jump whoever came into my room. And I'm sitting there, watching the door handle shaking back and forth. And again, like all the doors in the house, they weren't the easiest things to open. Like you would have to like almost kind of twist it a couple times to where it would catch and then open and like engage the latch to open. But I'm sitting there and I see the doorknob twisting. And I'm like, F this. I got up and I'm standing there and I grabbed the doorknob and I twisted it like it stopped in my hand, and I twisted it the last bit. And I opened the door and I had my hand cocked back, and Chad was standing outside my door. I said, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, did you hear that? I'm like, hear what? What did you hear? He's like, I swear to God, I heard somebody calling your name. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God. I'm like, I heard it too. I'm like, I swear, and I heard them go in. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, by the way. I said, I heard somebody go into the kitchen, and it sounded like they were going through our silverware, like pulled out one of our knives. And I said, I was getting ready to freaking drill you. Now, granted, if I would have hit Chad, he would have reciprocated and kicked the hell out of me. But, you know, that if it weren't Chad, I would have beat the hell out of them. Yeah. But, yeah, I said I was getting ready to freaking deck you, and then you could say what you said. Yeah,
well, the weird thing was Les's room is at the very back of the house. My room is at the very front of the house and not in a straight line from each other. My room was actually on, like I had said earlier, there was an L hallway. So when you went and made the turn in the L hallway, my room was the furthest room on that L. Next, there was a walk-in closet after that. And it sounded like Les's younger brother, Mikey. And I'm not even sure. Yeah, I'm not even sure he was old enough at that point to drive.
Yes, he was. He's a year younger than we are. Oh, he was 18. Okay. That's when we were like 19 or 20.
Yeah, I always think of him being a little bit younger than us than that much. But okay. But it sounded like Les's little brother, and it was so weird because I heard it downstairs. Mm-hmm. Like I said, my room was on the front of the house, and I was on the street side where the road actually passes right in front of the house, and we get some big trucks and stuff coming down through there. So for me to hear like the back door and stuff like that's next to impossible.
Yeah.
But I could hear what I thought was Mikey downstairs going, Les.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so I had gotten up at that point thinking, well, like Les had said, we always had friends that kind of just came over and showed up, and then you'd wake up and be going to take, go get ready for school in the morning and look in your living room and there's 3 people laying on the floor. You just kind of looked and saw who it was and you just went about your day, and then they would leave midway through the day and stuff like that. So I thought it might have actually been Mikey, and I was like, okay, well, if Les isn't getting up, if it's Mikey, I'll go out and see what he needs, or see if if I can get Les up.
Yeah.
So I had actually turned the L of the hallway, and I heard it again. I heard Les. So like I kind of leaned over the railing on the stairs and was like looking down the stairs, and I couldn't see anybody. Mm-hmm. At that point, I walked to Les's door like, okay, I'm getting, at that point I had heard it for a couple of times where it had said Les.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm getting Les up because evidently somebody's downstairs calling his name. And I, again, this is as stuff's happening in the house, we're kind of like, well, I'm not going to go downstairs in the middle of the night by myself. I'm taking Les with me because we're, both pretty big guys. And we're like, one of us is going, we both go downstairs.
Yeah.
So at that point, I go to open his door to like poke my head and be like, dude, somebody's downstairs. And that's when he yanks the door open and is looking at me. And I'm like, dude, what, I heard somebody calling your name. And, we're just kind of looking at each other and we're like, okay, I don't hear it now.
Yeah. And we're both visibly freaked out at that point.
Yeah. And we had like even looked out the back windows from Les's room to see if like somebody had parked behind our cars or something like that, and was walking out to the car. Or we were thinking it was logically one of our friends who showed up in the middle of the night. It sounded like Mikey, but we were kind of thinking, well, maybe it was Joe, maybe it was so and so. So we were kind of like, looking around, seeing if there's any cars parked or anything like that. Nothing.
Yep.
So that was, very interesting because for some reason it chose to call Les's name, not my name, thankfully.
Yeah. And I was very new to the house, to the property as well, because Chad's family had owned it for a while before I lived there. And another thing that was kind of weird was the closet in my room.
Yeah.
That thing, the solid oak doors, the oak handles, it was, when you close that door, it latched solid. And I would yank on the door, tug on the door, pound on the door, trying to get that thing to pop open. I could never get it to open. But every night, the same time in the middle of the night, I'd be lying in bed and I would hear the doorknobs rattling. And I'd look, okay, it's not the front door. And I'd look over and it's the closet door. And I could physically sit there and watch the doorknob move. And all of a sudden, the latch would engage and it wouldn't just kind of like creep open. It would open. And we had like a carpeting there and you would have to like push it, or sometimes we'd have to push the carpet down and then slide the door over it. And I would sit there and I could hear it drag across. Like you can't, it doesn't
move on its own.
Yeah. It doesn't sway over that. Like you have to pull it over the carpet to get into the closet. And I would be laying there at night. I'd hear the doorknob going, poof, door would pop across the closet or a carpet, and then boom, my closet door would be hanging wide open. I'd jump out of that freaking bed, go over, slam the door shut, push on it tight. I'd hear that little snap of the latch. I'm like, all right, that's it. Pushed it back, tugged on it, punch. I used to wake him up all the time because he's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, my closet keeps opening up. I'm trying to get the closet to stay shut. And he's like, well, why are you hitting it? I'm like, because it keeps opening. And I don't know why, and he just, we had weird stuff happen, but he, I don't know if he believed me at first. And then finally, like we were in the room talking the one time and all of a sudden poof, he's like, all right, Dad's effed up. I'm like, now you believe me. And he's like, how, and you remember you went over and you're fiddling with it, trying to like, how is this, how did it do that? I'm like, I don't know. Because most of the time, it would get stuck in the carpet because the carpet was kind of rolled, and it would, and I don't know.
Yeah, it was it was a small walk-in closet in a brick home, that was solid, and a big oak door, and that door actually had one of the better, metal ornate, covers on it, and the handle was really good, and you'd push it closed, and it would say closed. And I remember the night we were sitting there, and you're like, he kept telling me his door kept opening, and I'm like, at a certain point, I started to feel like we were just overboard. Like every little thing that was going on, we would just instantly magnify.
Yeah.
So he finally basically just drugged me into his room knowing about what time it opens. And we were sitting there talking. And all of a sudden the door just opens. And I'm looking at him like, okay, I believe you now. That's messed up.
And remember though, it wasn't just like a pop open and just kind of crept open. It opened like you were standing in front of it. Yep. Opened it up like they're going in there to get something.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the goosebumps, dude! I'm telling you right now, I'm freaking myself out just talking about it again.
We ended up putting your bed in front of the door.
No, it wasn't my bed. It was that old TV stand thing that I had. Remember, I used to just put like stuff in it.
Yeah.
But I never put the bed.
I thought that night we moved the bed in front of it.
Oh, you okay? Yeah, cramp.
Yeah, my hamstring just cramped up as I bent my leg. Sorry, folks.
Ooh, yeah. I get that a lot. That sucks. Are you okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Okay. But no, I know maybe I did put I don't know, because I remember I didn't want my head near the closet, and that's why I didn't put the bed. No, I did put the bed near it. That's right. Yeah.
Because I thought we actually put the bed up against the door. Like, we're not dealing with this tonight. Put the bed up against the door.
Yeah, no, that's right. And then I ended up putting that old entertainment stand thing in front of it.
Yeah.
But that was weird.
Yeah, and that room, just it's not. There's like plenty of windows in that room and stuff like that, and it's not one of the darker rooms in the house, but that closet door. And when I saw it happen, like I said, at a certain point, I thought we were kind of falling into, oh, this is happening, that's happening, and we started to kind of. I was feeling like we were just waiting for stuff to happen, where normal stuff was happening, and we were attributing it to, oh, it's got to be paranormal. It's something's not right.
Right.
Now there was, I don't remember how well you remember this story. There was a night where we were sitting in the living room, and I don't remember at what point this was when we were living there. But I know we were watching Austin Powers, because that was again at that point. So it had to be the Austin Powers time.
So that was early.
Early, yeah. And we were sitting there, and the way we had the living room set up was the couch was by the doorway that went into the hallway. Mm-hmm. We had a recliner that sat on the other side of the closet door facing caddy corner, where if you kind of turned your head a little bit, you could look down the hallway, but if not, you were kind of looking straight into the TV. Was Petey there at that point?
Yeah, Petey was to the left of the
Petey was recliner. To the left of the chair, and then we had a coffee table in front of the couch, and we were watching the movie and stuff like that. And Les says to me, he's like, dude. I'm like, what? He's like, look in the hallway. And I'm like, I so totally, at this point, I totally did not want to look in the hallway, because anytime one of us said, look over there, or watch this, or anything, it was always something you didn't necessarily want to see in the middle of the night when you should be trying to go to bed.
Right.
And I look in the hallway, and of course it's one of those, like, if I would have had a cover and I would have been in bed, the covers would have been up to my nose, and I would have went. But I look, and it looks like a ball of light about 4 foot off the ground, just coming down the hallway. And it's actually like, I don't know how well you guys can see this on camera, but it's going up and down a little bit.
Yeah.
Almost like somebody's stepping.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just white light. It wasn't.
Yeah. It looked like one of those tiny mag lights.
Yeah. But it wasn't like
the light was a little bit smaller than that ball that you had in your hand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more of an ambient light, not like a halogen light. It was like that orangey kind of, and you're right. Yeah. Just kind of like almost like somebody was walking, but it was coming towards us.
Yeah. And I looked, I acknowledged the fact that Les saw something, and I turned my head back to the TV and wouldn't look in the hallway ever again.
Yeah, and it just went, and then it just kind of swooshed up, and almost like it was going down the steps or something, and then it just went out.
Yeah. And again, somebody out there might be able to reasonably, ball lightning or, something along those lines.
Bob Hills just says he knows what we're talking about. So I wish we could talk to you physically, Bob. Type in what you experienced in your situation, if you don't mind, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. But we'll check your comment then. But yeah, that was very. And you know what? Now I wonder if that had anything to do with the light your sister saw.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, like that kind of would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, like, again, remember I said it was like somebody was holding a flashlight in the hole, like up against the hole. So, a small light that like we saw in the hallway, possibly. Now that light was shining, the light in her room, like I said, was more like a beam of light. Like it was shining through the hole, like a beam of light.
But what if it was like that little ball just kind of glowing behind it and it was producing the light that was coming out?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, I don't know.
I still can't figure out what could have produced that. Because, I mean, it was a free floating. And again, we're paranormal researchers. We cryptozoological researchers and whatnot. But I'm still the skeptic first. I have to believe it. I have to see it to believe it. I mean, when we do our paranormal investigating, we try and, look at every plausible angle as to what it could be rather than saying, because there's so many groups out there and so many people that are like, it's a ghost. Look, I'm telling you, it's a light. It's floating there. It can't be anything else. It's a ghost. I'm telling you. Well, no. You can't jump to that conclusion. There's got to be a logical explanation. And we don't try to explain it away. We try and find out, and 99.9% of the time, we typically find a logical or a rational explanation for something. We find out what it is, what the source of the supposed paranormal activity is. But this, I mean, this is when we were we started doing our paranormal investigating earlier than that, a few years earlier than that. Yeah. And this is when we kind of both had the shared mentality that we didn't want to do any kind of paranormal investigating where we lived, just because we didn't want to drum up any more activity or give any more energy to something, because I don't want to live with it. And I'm not making up stuff. And I mean, I don't want anybody to think that I'm weird or anything, but I've always had weird things happen to me. I've always experienced things throughout my entire life. And I have other personal stories that we'll share on another show. This one in particular, we're talking about the Minersville house. Yeah. But Chad too, we both kind of experienced things that we can't explain throughout our lives from when we were children up until adulthood. And I don't want to say it's paranormal. It's very, very weird, and I can't explain what's going on. But like I said, we always try and take more of a scientific approach on okay, it could be an electrical issue, it could be this, it could be that, and we try and look into that first rather than being like, all right, well, we're gonna have to try and make that ghost appear. No. But this situation, I mean, we were both sitting in the room together watching a movie, and out of my peripheral, because I'm like he said, I was in the recliner next to our boy Petey, the cockatiel, watching the movie, and I just see an illumination just kind of pop. And I thought maybe, it was one of those like sparkles, that you get, those little wispies that every now and again you might see in your, line of sight. But then I look down and I'm physically looking at this little ball of light kind of pop, 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 pop coming. And I'm like, dude, look down the hall. And when he looked down, we both saw it. So if it wouldn't be a fractal of light in my eye, if he could see it, and it just kind of hubbled, and he sat up on the sofa because he was lying down, and it just kind of whoosh down the staircase and gone. And Cleo, you said you would have been gone. Well, we were linemen, and I don't know if you know much about linemen when they, football players. It takes an awful lot to get us to run. Running isn't exactly something linemen do. So we were like, you know what? It didn't come and get us, so I'm cool right here. So
yeah, in fact, the only way to get out of the house would have been to go towards the direction where it went.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we were like, we're good right here. We're good right here. So that was one of many things, and I mean, it's hard to recall everything because there was so much.
Yeah.
But these stories that we're sharing from when he and I were together are really some of the major ones that stood out. Like I said, it was constant doorknobs rattling. There'd be times when you'd be in the kitchen or the bathroom and you'd see somebody walk past the openings of the doors.
Yeah.
We were sitting in the living room and we swear we saw the silhouette of somebody walking from the kitchen down back to the servants' stairs. Like, oh God, the goosebumps. I'm telling you, if you guys, it just really, really odd occurrences.
Well, the next one I would want to get into is the candle.
Go ahead.
Okay. We had, Les, I believe, still has. It is a gigantic.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I'm going back through comments. And Cleo, this isn't what got Chad and I into the paranormal. It definitely helped maintain us. And we're going to talk more about what we did at that house later. We've been into this stuff just because he and I have been, for lack of better terms, kind of weirdos forever. And we just, when we started our friendship, that's something we both talked about and we're both interested in. And we loved local lore and legend. And we would always go around to the different areas that were supposedly haunted. And, we take our cameras and our EVP recorders or our digital recorders, whatever we had at our disposal. And we would try and recreate what you're supposed to do at these supposed areas and whatnot. So this isn't what got us into it, but it definitely helped strengthen our interest, I would say. Am I right in saying that?
Oh yeah, because I come from a family of crazy people.
Well, we both do, actually.
Well, and that's a story for another time.
Yeah,
but
Harry, I don't mean, I'm just going to go through the comments really quick. Harry, you came in. We're talking about a house that Chad's family owned that he and I both lived in during our time in college in Minersville, Pennsylvania. And I think we're pretty caught up. Oh, one night the TV kept going on and off. I think TV going on and off. That's so funny, Cleo, that you said that. This is totally diverting, and Chad, I totally apologize, but I'll forget about it if I don't say something. Last week, and oddly, both my girls have been getting sick a lot lately. Flu-like symptoms. We were just at the doctor earlier today with both the kids because they're both sick. But last week, we were my wife and I were in bed. The girls' room is our girls share a room right across from our room, and I heard one of the kids. It sounded like they were having a hard time breathing and I went in and checked on them. They're both lying there sound as a pound. And I'm an overprotective father. So I'm like literally in their faces, feeling their faces, making sure breath is coming out. And I'm, making sure they're okay. I checked both my girls and they were good. So I came back and I lied down in bed and the TV was off and I'm laying there. And about 20 minutes later, I just see this flash of light. It woke me up. And then I heard like a kind of odd noise. And I thought it was one of my kids. And my TV turned on. And it was just a blank screen that it never did before. And I heard that noise. So I ran in and I checked the kids. They were okay. I came back in and I thought maybe I rolled on the remote. Because sometimes I'll fall asleep or my wife will fall asleep with the TV on. And the remote was lying on the dresser in front of the TV. I walked over, turned it off and everything. And it was just very weird. And then I look and it all happened between 3 and 20 after 3 in the morning. And supposedly 3 o'clock is the witching hour. And that's when a lot of stuff kind of happens. So I was kind of creeped about that. I actually woke my wife up and I told her about it. And she's like, "Oh, I can't go back to bed." I'm like, "I have nothing to worry about. I sleep by the door. You don't, I'm in the creepy part of the room." But and then actually a couple nights after that, we woke up and the TV was on and it had a Sony Entertainment logo kind of frozen on the TV, but it was the Sony Entertainment logo from the 80s, which was very weird. And it was just really large in the middle. I didn't even tell you about this one yet, Chad, but it was really large in the middle of the TV, and I don't know what the hell was going on. So I just turned the TV off and went back to bed. So that was kind of odd. And to give, again, like I said, everywhere I've lived, and I've lived in a lot of different places, everywhere I've lived, I've had personal experiences. This is our new house. We've been here actually officially 2 years now. And the people, there were actually 2 people that died in the house. We don't tell our kids that, but and we didn't really think much of it because nothing really major happened. But that's for another show. But I did want to share that about the TV since, Cleo, you said about the TV. So anyways, chat about the next topic. So I apologize.
Well, we used to have a TV that would turn itself on and off. We had an old Zenith floor model, like back when like 24 inches was the big screen. And that thing, it was my grandparents' TV. My grandparents passed away. My dad and my stepmother put it in my brother in my room, my stepbrother. And the TV would turn itself on and turn itself off all the time. Like you'd be laying in bed and all of a sudden the TV would be on. And then you'd like go to get up to turn it off and it would turn off. Mm-hmm. You would walk in, like we'd get in trouble. They'd be like, "Why did you leave your TV on? You guys have been gone all day." We're like, "The TV wasn't on when we got up this morning. It was on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I had to go up there and shut your damn TV off." We're like, "Well, it wasn't on when we were here." And we kept telling them it was turning itself on and off. And I think one time when my stepmother was upstairs cleaning, she actually saw it do it. And she's like, "Yeah, their TV for some reason is just turning on and off randomly." I think it was a wire at that point. But
and with my TV too, I bought it. It was a display model. So I just chalk it up as there's some kind of an issue with it. Because sometimes when you'd be watching it, it would just automatically shut off and then turn itself back on. So I'm attributing it to that.
Yeah.
I don't think it was anything paranormal. It was just very weird how it all took place. And the fact that it happened twice in a week. And the Sony logo was weird. I mean, it was the 80s Sony logo. It was weird. But anyways, on to the next topic.
Yeah. So, we had a 6-wick candle. And it was a very large candle. Les, can you talk about this candle for a second, please?
Yeah. People used to bust on me all the time. Now again, keep in mind, I am an artist. I have my own business. I've always been artistically inclined, and I was going to art school at the time. And when Chad and I lived together, I take pride in everything that I'm in. Even though I didn't own the home, it was my home. It was our home. Me and my buddies, So I decorated, and I liked to make our house look nice. So I had a very large, probably about maybe 8 inches in diameter, maybe 8 inches tall, big, thick candle. and it was a 3-wick candle, and it sat on a really heavy, solid, decorative brass base. And we had it on the coffee table all the time, and I don't think we ever lit that thing.
I think maybe once or twice we lit it. I don't.
Oh no, yeah, we did, because remember somebody let it lit and it had wax all over the tablecloth, the runner that I had on there. Yeah. So, anyways, I explained the candle. Go ahead.
Okay. So, as you all can tell, Les is the feminine one in this relationship.
Yeah. And I drove a yellow car too.
Yeah. But so now this isn't the only night that something like this happened, but randomly we would fall asleep, and we always, kind of being into, like, having candles and kind of a little gothic-y type look to the house and stuff like that. We always had candles, and we'd light candles in the house and stuff like that, and kind of, just have that ambiance to the rooms and stuff like that.
And so, scented ones, to make the place, because I mean, we are two guys after all. The place needed a better smell.
Yeah. So one of the rules was whoever the last person awake would put out the candles.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that hard usually, because we'd both be like in the living room watching TV or something like that. So it would be like maybe 2 or 3 candles, now and then. It wasn't every night. He's not that romantic.
Only when I cooked.
Yeah. Only when he made dinner.
Yeah.
But this candle was on the coffee table, and neither one of us remembers who fell asleep first. And that's usually, 2 guys, you hear your friends snoring, so you just get up and put out the candles. And neither one of us remember who fell asleep.
Mm-mm.
We wake up the next day, and it was probably like 11 o'clock, midday.
Yeah.
We wake up, and there is candle wax from one side of the room, clear across the room, and a good 3 to 4 foot up the other wall.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not candle wax in the sense of a candle spitting wax like they do at times, and it's a little bit over here and a little bit over here. It is a straight line across the room.
Mm-hmm.
And a straight line up the other wall. Now, those rooms are about 13 to 15 foot wide. Coffee table. Yeah, a coffee table and the couch. So, figure that's probably taken up about 3 to 4 foot right there. So it cleared the room a good 10 foot and then up the wall.
Yep.
And up the wall a good distance in a straight line. Now, it wasn't like somebody took a candle and just poured it, and it was one solid line. But it was a inline streak, and it would stop every so often and then start again. And it went all the way over and up the wall.
Yep. Almost like when a priest would kind of like flick holy water, where it would just like that splatter and make it like almost like maybe somebody put their finger in it and just went and just flung it and just went in that straight line. But it was very prominent, straight across and then up the wall.
Yeah, like it was just such a weird, because again, like I said, neither one of us remembers who fell asleep first. One of the other times I recall that happened was when we burnt the pizza. We had that after work. We got that pizza and we left it in the oven and fell asleep. And we woke up and it was a hockey puck. One of those big store-bought pizzas. We wake up the next morning, again, do not remember who fell asleep first, and we woke up to a burnt hockey puck.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how the place didn't catch on fire because the oven was on all night.
Yeah. So, that it was one of those weird, just like neither one of us remembered who fell asleep. And we're kind of like looking at each other like, dude, I don't remember falling asleep.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you lay down and you don't remember the exact moment when you fall asleep, but you kind of have that, I'm laying down okay, I'm waking up.
Yeah, that recollection,
Yeah.
of, yeah, this, and see, that's funny too, because it was very weird how you and I would just like unanimously and instantly just pass out with no memory of anything. Like I just remember walking in the room and then nothing.
Yeah.
Then we wake up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying like, you know, there were plenty of nights that I remember, laying down and getting comfortable and drifting off to sleep.
But it was always when the weird shit happened.
Yeah. A couple of these nights was just like instantaneous sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and wake up to weird stuff around the house. And not, and even to the point of not wake up in the middle of the night and have to go to the bathroom, or have, like wake up almost in the same position you remember being in.
Mm-hmm.
So not like tossing and turning, like being on your back and waking up on your back. I have a lot of trouble sleeping on my back. And now when I was younger, I probably was a little bit easier for me to do. But even to this day, if I fall asleep on the couch, I have to be on my side usually.
Mm-hmm.
I would wake up on that couch on my back, like flat on my back, and wake up, and it would be 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the nights that it was just a weird, like, sleep, and then all of a sudden wake up. And it was like 11 o'clock the next day when we woke up. It wasn't
it was like 14 hours had passed.
Yeah. And, it always kind of just, it was weird because the candle, and the candle itself wasn't burnt like it had burned for a long time. It had burnt down. It was like just a normal, like it was burning for a little bit and it wasn't burning, but the wax was clear across the room.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It only looked like it was burning for like maybe an hour tops. I mean, it wasn't even really melted down that bad. And again, this candle probably weighed 3 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it was solid. I mean, it had some beef to it. I mean, we use it a lot of times to hold things down, cause it was so heavy, but that was weird.
Now, do you remember when you had got the pendulum?
Yeah, my little pendulum set.
And doing that at the house?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a store in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. What is it?
The Emporium of Curious Goods.
Yeah. It's a neat little shop if anybody's ever in Jim Thorpe.
My favorite.
They're not a sponsor of ours, so
no sponsorship. Just absolutely love that shop. The owners have owned it for as long as Chad and I could remember. They're the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. Absolutely love them. They have the most eclectic collection of merchandise. It's really cool, and like part of it is kind of like a new age shop. Part of it's an antique shop. Part of it is just nostalgic cast iron penny banks and vintage toys and just some of the most beautiful holiday decorations that look like they're 300 years old. It is so awesome. One of my absolute favorite stores, hands down.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I had to give that plug.
Yeah, we've actually driven out to there just to go there. Like when we were, at college age and stuff like that, we would just drive out there to check out that shop and get something to eat while we were out there and stuff like that.
Now I only live 10 minutes from it.
Yeah.
Where back then it was like an hour's drive.
Yeah. So, Les got this pendulum, set. And one day we finally just were like sitting in the living room. It's the middle of the afternoon. And we're like, let's ask, a few questions. So we start out with, is the house haunted? And it swings to yes. And we're like, okay, kind of confirmed our suspicion. in a new age philosophy way.
Mm-hmm.
Then we asked, was it friendly? And it's on like, a chain, kind of almost like the going down.
Yeah.
And it looked like somebody took two fingers and pinched it. So it's straight here and straight above it. And it looked like somebody took two fingers and it bowed out and started swinging to no. I don't think we could have put that thing away quicker.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget though, a lot of the questions that we asked multiple times, and they were answered the same exact way. We wouldn't ask them like, "Is the place haunted? Is there spirits here? Is there this? Is the place haunted? Is there spirits there? Is there?" We would just kind of randomly just ask questions, but we'd throw some of the same ones in. We interject other questions. Like, we tried to mix it up to try and see if it would produce different results. And the primary questions that we asked always resulted in the same answer. So that was odd. And then it wasn't till that just weird, almost like bow and arrow kind of swing happened that we're both like, goodbye, we're done.
Yeah, so that was like in the middle of the day, and that was one of those ones where I think we were like, after we put it away and stuff like that, where should we go? What can we, basically just stumbling to try to find a way to go somewhere outside of the house.
Yeah.
I think we should drive to this town and go see what they got going on. And
didn't we go to Coney Island after that and get grease burgers?
Probably.
I thought we did. Yeah.
Any story that involves me going for food when I lived up that way probably involves at some point me going to Coney Island. So yeah, that was one of the times. And again, like Les said, we didn't want to investigate while we lived there. We were kind of just inquisitive.
Yeah.
Like at that point, we had already experienced so many things going on in the house that we had something. Whether you believe in it, you don't believe in it, either side of the issue. Again, these are things that happened to us personally. So I saw what I saw. I have never, ever had anybody be able to physically replicate what I saw on that line that day without doing the pinch and pull.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those things like we asked questions, and then when it told us it wasn't friendly, because we even asked, was there more than one there?
Mm-hmm.
And, the answer was yes. And then we asked, like we have changed the question around, are all the spirits here friendly? And it was no. And, so we had asked several different variations of the same questions. And, it kind of, that one was good enough. I think that at that point we were like, okay, yeah, let's put this away and not ever do this again here.
Yeah. It wasn't until we both hadn't lived there in many, many years that we actually tried to investigate it.
Yeah. We had moved out and the house had sat empty or had been an office, at different points throughout the time frame that we, since we've owned it. My sister had moved back into the house at a certain point with her husband and her two of her sons. Her third son wasn't born yet. And, they had things happen in that house. My nephews, they had one of those kids, like one of those my first digital camera things for kids. And they had taken a photo and there's some kind of blurry thing behind my middle nephew in the photo. And it looks like somebody's screaming. I don't have the photo anymore. I've lost the digital copy of it over the years. I don't know if my sister even still has it. like the oldest nephew would always talk about the people that would be around my middle nephew because they shared what used to be my room. And they would always say about the people, around him and stuff like that. And, things would be turning on and turning off, and the bathroom would be rearranged. Like everything from the shower would be sitting on the back of the toilet paper would be in the, shower. And she had actually had that happen when she had lived there the first time. Like her bathroom constantly got rearranged.
Yeah, we never had that happen.
No, we
I
never
don't remember anything like that.
No, I mean, our bathroom was kind of, Spartan, sense. We didn't really we had hair gel, soap, shampoo, conditioner, and razors. Toothpaste.
And a see-through Mickey Mouse shower curtain that we got on clearance.
Yeah. Nothing better than, I didn't use the bathroom. I'm in the shower. Well, hide behind Mickey.
Yeah, man, Mickey's got something that he didn't have in the cartoons.
But yeah, so like there was definitely stuff that like my sister had experienced there with her whole family. Then one of my employees moved into the house. And he had basically occupied the second floor of the house. At that point, I had ripped off the back sun porch and mudroom and built a deck. So now at this point, there's an exit off the second floor, so you can enter and exit through the second floor on its own. And he took Les's old bedroom and turned it into a pool room, like for shooting pool. He's a big pool player and stuff like that. And, it was Christmas Eve, and he went out on the back deck to smoke a cigarette. He didn't, he's one of those people, he smoked, but he didn't necessarily like to smoke in his house and stuff like that. So he'd go outside to smoke at times. And it was a relatively warm Christmas Eve. It wasn't super cold out. So he was outside smoking. And the yard goes back, and there's 2 parking spaces at the end of the yard in a street. And he's out there smoking, and it was kind of hazy out. It's night, maybe 9, 10 o'clock at night. And it's kind of a haze, and there's lights out back and stuff like that. And he sees somebody walking down the back street, which it's in the middle of town. It's not that uncommon. And the person comes between the car and the empty parking space and starts walking down towards his apartment. So he's thinking, oh, it's somebody he knows, coming to see him shoot pool, whatever. And he was going to tell him, like, hey, come down, park down here, so you're not blocking one of the neighbors' driveways, or, parked in front of somebody's house, because it's a very limited parking situation in that part of town. And he said he sees this person. He realizes, like, the person isn't, first of all, it's a female. He had just broken up with his longtime living girlfriend about a year prior, like earlier that year. And he sees this female coming down. And he's like, but she doesn't quite look like she's in the right time frame or time period. Like her dress is a little different from the going on of the 2000s. And he takes a drag off his cigarette, and he's like kind of looking, and he's waiting. So he starts walking down the steps to try to intercept this person. And as he's going down the steps, now these are very steep, slippery steps, especially when they're wet. So he's kind of like watching what he's doing, and he goes down, he looks, and there's nobody there. So he's like, oh, okay, maybe they just were cutting through the yard or something like that. And he goes back in the house, and he's shooting a rack of pool. And the door there is a door, like a solid wood door with a window in it. And he's, lining up his shot, and he looks on an angle, and he sees somebody in the window. but in the sense of like he could tell he wasn't seeing somebody standing on the other side of the window. And the person
Oh my God, were they in with him?
They weren't in the room with him. But to him, he thought they were in the window. Like actually in the glass of the window. Like he could physically, he could tell they weren't on the other side, but they weren't in the room with him. So he said it felt like they were actually in the glass. And it was a female dressed in old, like late 1800s, 1900s dress.
That's weird.
So, you know, again, he had heard ghost stories of this house at that point. You know, we freely were telling them to anybody that would listen.
I remember telling him about those stories.
Yeah. So there's already a precognitive, like, oh, if something happens, or might create a situation in your mind. So it is a way to kind of brush it off. Except for I had one of my Belgian Malinois that I had in that house at a later time actually took out that pane of glass. My Marco, who was when I had Rex, Marco was a super nice dog.
Rex was creepy.
Yeah. Marco actually took out that same pane of glass with his chest. He ran from one end of the house straight through the house and leaped chest first into the glass. Don't know why he did it. Never did it again.
I guess not.
So the same window gets taken out, but this person, when they were living there, had another little thing happen to him that was quite odd. Of course, again, he's shooting pool, and the table was a little off from the door to fit in the room. So he's lining up a shot. He's here, and he looks back, and he's like, and he shoots, and he turns and says, "Hey, Steve, how you doing?" Steve being one of his friends. And he's like, doesn't hear anything, and he turns back around looking in the doorway. Nobody there. So he thought, oh, Steve's been a good friend of his for 15 years. So he figured Steve's in the bathroom or went in the kitchen or is somewhere in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes and he's like standing in what would have been your room at your old room. He's standing in the doorway and he's like listening, and he's like waiting for Steve to come out of the bathroom or out of the kitchen. And he finally like steps down the hall a little bit, pushes open the bathroom door. There's nobody in there. Goes to the kitchen, throws the light on. Nobody in there. He goes through the whole house to the point where he actually calls Steve's cell phone and says, "Dude, where did you go?" And Steve's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I just saw you. I figured you came over to play pool, and I turned around and you were gone." And Steve's like, "Dude, I'm at home in Lake Winona." And this person's like, "No, dude, don't, stop messing with me. You already know, this house kind of has me freaked out." And he's like, "No, dude, legitimately, I'm at home with my girlfriend here in Lake Winona." Now, Lake Winona from Minersville, for people who aren't familiar with this area, about a 45-minute drive.
Yeah, probably.
Around there, half hour, 45 minutes. I mean, probably maybe a little bit less than that. So there was no way in the amount of time from when he saw Steve to when he finally called Steve did Steve make it home. So he doesn't believe Steve. Steve's girlfriend gets on the phone like, "No, we're at the house." He's like, "Okay, hang up the phone. I'm going to call your house phone. Answer the house phone." Thinking they're seriously messing with him. He calls the house phone. They pick up the house phone. They're home. They're at the lake. He, can't figure out who this person was. He thought it was Steve, like from looking, at a quick glance. But nope, Steve was at his house in Lake Winona.
After hearing that story, it's kind of scary how you didn't mention the person's name, right? This person that you're talking about.
I didn't mention their name.
They had an experience in the house where they saw somebody they knew.
Mm-hmm.
I had an experience in the house where somebody was actually physically talking to me, but sounded like somebody I knew.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of weird how the house or whatever is mimicking is mimicking familiar people to the people that are occupying this place?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't strike me as your typical haunting or reoccurring or residual haunting or you know what I mean? Like, this to me sounds like it's something far more intelligent and deceptive.
Yeah.
And it goes back to when we were playing with the pendulum, though, when it said there's multiple spirits, but not all of them are good.
Yeah.
And maybe not all of them were spirits.
Mm-hmm. This brings me to a story, which I was not there when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years ago, we turned the house. We had shut down our family business and turned the house basically into storage.
Mm-hmm.
I had moved out and stuff like that, and I'd been living there at one point or another again and moved out. So we turned it into storage, and my sister and one of her friends were going over there to get something out of the house to take, her friend had opened like a consignment shop in the old Terrace Music building.
Oh, yeah.
So now, this is a friend my sister grew up with her. I don't really remember her from when we were kids, but they had known each other since they were kids. And my sister never told the girl about the house. She just, was like, hey, come over with me. We'll grab that stuff. We'll take it up to your shop.
Mm-hmm.
So the girl that comes with my sister claims to be psychic. Again, I have enough stories about psychics on both ends of it. I don't know where I feel the validity in it is, but I do have some history family-wise with some of this. So they're standing at the top of the stairwell on the landing, and she looks at my sister and goes, whatever it is likes you and your brother. And my sister hasn't told her about the house and hasn't told her the stories of this house. And my sister says, what do you mean? And she's like, whatever is here likes you and your brother. And my sister's like looking at her, and she looks at my sister. My sister's name is Tara. And she goes, Tara, it's dark and it's not good, but it likes you and your brother. My sister's like, okay, we need to leave. So they leave, they go to her friend's shop, and my sister then tells her friend, like, look, this is a lot of the stories we're relaying tonight, except for some of the ones that are my stories. My sister goes through her experiences in the house, family experiences, our experiences, and tells the girl, and the girl's like, yeah, it's dark. And she goes, it's not the only thing there. She goes, but the one that likes you and your brother is the dark one. And actually, at one point, she told my sister it was standing right next to her when they were talking.
That's creepy. And this is the girl that has like psychic abilities?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see the goosebumps and the hair on my arms. because I have an experience I'm going to share with you guys tonight that goes along with this. And I'm going to preference this with the fact of this could have been a lucid dream. I don't think it was, but it surely could have been. I woke up in the middle of the night. My wife and I were living there at the time, and we had kind of switched the layout of the house a little bit. The living room that Les and I used as a living room, her and I actually turned into our bedroom, and the room that was Les's room in the very back of the house now has the deck on it, became the living room, because we didn't want people walking through our living room to go to the bathroom or through the bedroom to go to the bathroom and kitchen in that house, figuring we would entertain eventually at that house and stuff. So we moved our bedroom to the front of the house. I get up and open the bedroom door, and I start walking towards the bathroom, which would be, I would have hit the kitchen door, the bathroom door, and then I would have been in the bathroom. Well, we didn't keep lights on in there, but I had a very big glow-in-the-dark Buddha and dragon that sat in the kitchen on a shelf. As I'm approaching the kitchen door, I see this black, shadowy mass come right in front of my face. I couldn't make out any of its features of a face. I could make out like a few wisps of hair and somewhat pointy ears. And it was right like this far from my face. And I could hear it snarling. Like I said, it could have been a lucid dream. I'm trying to write it off, but it was in my face and it was snarling, and I could feel warm air hitting my face. And I kind of just stood there frozen, like just froze in position. And it was right, and I could hear it snarling and growling. And it just started moving away from me into the darkness, and it was gone. And like I said, it honestly, I'd like to write it off as a lucid dream. I don't know if it was or it wasn't, but it was darkness. It wasn't a ghost. It whether you believe in ghosts or not, even if it was a lucid dream, it wasn't a lucid dream about a ghost. It was pure darkness. And it was within inches of my face. And legitimately, I started sleeping with the hallway light on at that point. Like, after that night, I would always leave the hallway light on so I could see getting to the bathroom.
Right.
You
didn't have any of the dogs at the time, did you?
No, we didn't have the dogs at the time. That was before we got Darby, and I didn't have any of my working dogs at that point anymore. But when I had my working dogs, I had narcotics and explosive detection working dogs, and they were all bite work trained and protection qualified. And Rex used to actually lay on my chest, because when I lived there by myself, I wouldn't lay with my head facing the hallway. I'd always lay with my head towards the doorway, and had the TV on a different over more, so I could look that way at it and not have to look at the hallway. Rex used to climb up on my chest, push me down with his paws, and lay on me. And he would start growling and showing his teeth, just looking in the hallway, and snarl and growl, and the hackles on the back of his neck. He was a 65-pound Belgian Malinois. If anybody knows police dogs, the newer dogs that you're seeing a lot of times are Belgian Malinois. Very high energy dog, very good dog. He was a little nutty, but he would push me down like he was trying to protect me and would just growl and snarl at the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just do it for 10, 15 minutes and then stop. But like every so often he wasn't one of those dogs. He wasn't a super affectionate dog. Like he was a working dog. Like though he would spoon me when he would crawl up into the bed when I was sleeping and spoon me. Kind of creepy. Well, it was kind of creepy when you'd wake up with a dog. You're laying this way, the dog's head's here, and he's like breathing in your face. And when I would roll over, he would roll over, so his back would be to me. Kind of weird.
You crawl in, you'd be like, you just hear this, shh, just go with it. Oh, God. Yeah, he was weird. He's also the same dog that ate my cell phone. Uh-huh. That dog creeped me out, man. I don't know what it was about him, but he made me uneasy. But Teddy was the best one.
Yeah.
Your shepherd. I love that dog.
Yeah. But that dog used to actually like force protect me in the house and would just growl and then just all of a sudden stop and walk away. Yeah.
Well, here's a question, and I don't think I've ever asked you this because you used to dog sit for me when I had a little lazy English bulldog. Did he ever notice anything when he was in there with you?
Yeah, that hanging out at my house was way cooler than hanging out with you.
No, I believe that.
You could go up on the furniture and take naps on the leather couch and not feel like he was going to get yelled at. But
he wasn't allowed to do anything in my house.
Oh, he used to hop up on my leather chair with me and just sprawl out and take a nap on me. But no, I know.
I remember when I came to pick him up, I was gone for a week, and I come to pick him up. I'm like, "Come on, Bubba, let's go." And he goes and lays down behind your chair. I'm like, "What? You son of a bitch!"
And yet, if you remember, when he was a puppy, he used to bite me all the time. He didn't like me little. No, not
he was a good boy.
Yeah. I don't really remember him having any, where he would snap or anything in the house. But with that house, it goes through weird periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you and I had talked when we kind of brought up doing this episode. Everybody sees the Amityville Horror, The Conjuring, the Annabelle, all these movies. Yeah. And in a movie, it seems like, oh, there's this horrible, you get locked in rooms and something throws you down steps and pins you down and it does all these, all these scary things. And, it happens in a movie because a movie's 2 hours. It happens in that 2 hours and it seems like it happens night after night after night.
Yeah.
When you actually listen to the Perone girl from The Conjuring, I think that's how you say her last name. Her story that you see in the movie Conjuring is actually several years that this stuff goes on. And she said, there were periods of time where the house, nothing happened. It was quiet and peaceful and you felt like whatever was there was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I try to explain to people is this house goes through those stages of just feels like, oh, it's a normal house and you can walk around the house and you don't feel like somebody's in the room with you.
Mm-hmm.
Me generally when I'm in that, my sister doesn't even go to the house by herself anymore.
Yeah.
She'll take one of her sons with her who are, one of them's an adult now. One of them's just about to be an adult. She'll take one of them with her. She won't go to the house by herself. Right. Stuff like that. I mean, I can go to the house by myself, but I still always am feeling like somebody's in the room with me or I'm always waiting to turn around and see somebody or, walk into somebody in the house.
Yeah. There was always that sensation, either you're not alone or you're being watched. And I hated, because when we were in college, I worked retail, and I used to not get home sometimes till 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I also worked for Chad, and we would do like security work and stuff like that. And Lord knows when we get home some nights, sometimes we were out all night. And sometimes, like if I was working retail and he was working a different job, and I'd be in the house by myself, I hated it. I used to go just driving around just to not be there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the nights that like I would be home and you'd be at work, I would either lock myself in my room or I would go to I would end up going to where Les worked at the mall and like walk around and then come over to where he worked and be like, "Hey dude, what's going on?" And he'd just like look at me and be like, "Yeah, just trying to stay out of the house, aren't you?" And I'm like,
yeah. I know where you're coming from.
I wanted to answer a question. I just saw one pop up here. The dark figure, the rooms around, moved the rooms around, but really didn't do any work to really change the rooms around. It was basically they were, from nobody being in the house. It wasn't like we were, doing remodeling in the rooms that maybe had generated some energy. It was more or less just moving our bed into that room and the living room furniture into the living room. So not as much on the like doing remodeling work or construction that might have kicked up some energy. As far as the dark figure goes, like I said, it honestly, I like to write it off. It was a very lucid dream.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily want to deal with the fact that if it was real, what it would have been.
Yeah. Honestly, dude, I think if that, I mean, we're in it to win it when it comes to the paranormal, and we try and be level-headed, logical, and all that stuff. But try and stand your ground and go into places you wouldn't probably want to go into. But honestly, I think if that happened to me, I think I would probably be gone.
Well, you notice shortly after that happened, I moved 3 states away.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It was one of those things where, I worked at a certain point, I was working third shift and my wife was in the house, and she used to always tell me about how she'd feel somebody like petting her hair at night, which is something like she like loves when somebody does that to her. So evidently this ghost was making moves on my wife. But she also told me a couple times like she thought she saw the door handles moving like in the bedroom, and we actually put deadbolts on the room doors. Back when it was our office, we actually put deadbolts on some of the rooms because we had like our payroll checks and financial information in those rooms. So we actually put deadbolts on them, and that front, what used to be our living room, actually is one of the rooms that has it on there. And she'd actually turn the deadbolt on the door and stuff and lock herself in that room. I would do it when I slept there during the day. I would lock myself in that room. Like I wasn't going to wake up to the door being open.
Yeah, that place was really creepy. Just
now, kind of, I don't want to drag this on for another half hour or so. Les and I eventually did choose to investigate the house. And it kind of, part of the investigation was when I had lived there, it was probably my mid-20s. It was before my first marriage. And I lived there by myself. At one point, I painted the entire room black and decorated it with like Nosferatu, like the original Nosferatu movie posters. I had a Nosferatu figure. I also had a pet alligator, a Belgian Malinois, and a cat.
You went through a dark period. It's all right.
Yeah. But I had bought, I would go to Walmart. It was, for us, Walmart was new around this time. Like we had just gotten a Walmart and it was open 24 hours a day. So I would, in the middle of the night, drive to Walmart and buy a whole bunch of DVDs and then go home and put the DVDs on and lock the door in that room and stay in that room. And I had went to FYE the one time, or is it FYE or FYI?
FYE.
FYE, okay.
For your entertainment.
For your entertainment, okay. I went there, and they had The Exorcist, the director's cut, like the hyped up with all the deleted scenes back in it and commentary and whatnot. And the only thing was they only had it on VHS. So at that time, I had a PlayStation 2 and a VCR, and I used the PlayStation 2 to play DVDs and stuff like that. And I put the VHS Exorcist in and watched the whole movie. I think it was the first time I ever sat down and watched it all the way through, like not on TV or something like that, where I actually sat down and watched it. And of course, like I said, at that point, I had painted my bedroom black. So I don't know if there was something going on mentally at that point. But, it was kind of a dark period. And, I watched the movie and I got done. And, of course, watching something like that, living in that house, I had to do something to get my mind off what I just saw. So I hit my, PlayStation to turn it on, and the thing won't turn on. And I hit the reset and I unplug it, plug it, do all the, all the stuff that you're supposed to do when you're doing this. And thing will not come back on. So I figured, I left a game in. I would fall asleep playing games and I probably burn out the drive or something like that, and that's why it won't power up. So I'd left The Exorcist hanging out of the VCR because, of course, at that point I didn't really, watch too many, videos on VHS. So I just left it in the player, and I'd actually went out and bought another DVD player. Hooked it up so I could watch movies and stuff like that. And the one day I was cleaning up the house and my room and stuff like that, and I pulled The Exorcist out of the VCR and put it in the box and put it back up on the shelf. And for the proverbial shits and giggles, I hit the button on the PlayStation. The PlayStation powered up and worked just fine. Don't know why. But put the movie up on the shelf, hit, a little bit later, hit the button, all of a sudden it turned on, put in the game, started playing, the game worked, the machine worked. I ended up giving the PlayStation 2 to my nephews once I found out it worked, and they ended up having it for a year or two until the, like PlayStation 3 or whatever came out, or they got another one. But yeah, all of a sudden it worked. So I said to Lester one time, I'm like, let's investigate the house, but what I want to do is I want to put The Exorcist on and play it while we're investigating the house. I said, because when my PlayStation 2 shut down and wouldn't power back up was right after I watched this movie. So we played, we set out recorders, we set out some old cameras that we had at that time, had the bank of cameras up in the room where we were watching the movie, had the recorders spread out throughout the house, and had run, K2 meters all around the house, found all the hot spots, all that stuff. Went through a couple rooms, did a couple EVP sessions, went back and watched the movie, watched the monitors. Nothing happened. I've reviewed those the EVP recorders. You hear Les and I talking crystal clear on every one of them. Don't hear anything else.
Yeah.
Les's one EVP recorder is like super awesome because it will hear a mouse fart at 600 yards.
Yeah.
It makes reviewing evidence always so much fun because you can hear somebody breathing 2 rooms away, but it's a good recorder.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we've investigated the house, and it's weird because it's almost like that intelligence idea. Like it doesn't perform because you command it. Yeah. Yeah. Which I always kind of find offensive when people go to these places and are like, knock on that wall. Like, if ghosts are really real, it's kind of disrespectful, to ask them to perform for you. But yeah, we've investigated the house and really have never, ever had anything happen while investigating. We did actually record our first, not our first ever Explorers episode, but our Jersey Devil, the original Jersey Devil, the original Lake Monster, and the original Ghost of Gettysburg episode. I just did it again. We recorded those 3 episodes, and actually on one of the episodes, we actually had a third mic person on that episode. He's a friend of ours, an investigator, and he ran upstairs while we were doing the recording to use the bathroom. We had taken a little break.
Yeah, that's when we were doing the podcast before we did the live show.
Yeah, and he came back down, and he just looked at us. And he's like, how did you guys live in this house? And we're like, what do you mean? He's like, and this guy's an investigator. He's like, no, really, I feel so uncomfortable in this house. He's like, I felt like somebody was like, I was in the bathroom. He's like, I felt like somebody was standing at the door. I came out in the hallway, and he's like, I was expecting to see one of you guys like in the hallway, except for we were still both downstairs in the room I turned into a studio for us doing the show. He's like, yeah, he's like, this house is weird. Like, it's just odd. There's so much like different energy and stuff in the room and stuff like that. And that was a guy who, was an investigator for quite a few years and stuff like that. And, we had worked with the person on, Les had worked with him a little more than I did, but, we had done a couple investigations together, and I always felt he was very level-headed in that sense, and I still do to this day. But he had one experience in the house. Maybe he was there an hour and a half, and he already just felt uncomfortable and, was kind of questioning, like, how do you guys do this in here? And like, when can we investigate in here? And, I'm always open to anybody that wants to investigate it when I'm up in the area. Always. We
will go back. We will go back to that place for sure.
And to the point of the neighbors have actually called the cops because when nobody is living in there, they've heard people in the house making noise, moving stuff, to the point where the police have called me several times, throughout the years and been like, are you in PA right now? Like, no, why? Neighbor called the cops again, called us, again about noises in the house. Is there supposed to be anybody in there? Like, and I'm like, nope. So if you find somebody, just let me know and I'll definitely press charges. And I've actually had to, at one point, press charges against people that they found in the house because they actually found 2 kids playing in the house that were real kids. But the neighbor has called them several times. The police have been there, checked the house out, and they're like, nobody there again. I don't know what the neighbor's hearing. But, it's definitely just a house that is weird and has an energy to it. Yeah. An energy all of its own. There is one last story I want to tell, and it's not really a scary story or anything on those lines. One time we were remodeling the house and we found what looks like a couple, a man and a woman, and it's what looks like it was at one time like a large family photo or a wedding photo, but it's just the 2 of them kind of cut out of the photo. And the photo has its own backstory. Don't know what the photo's backstory is, but we find the photo. We thought, it's pretty cool. It's an old house. We found an old-fashioned photo, an old couple. Don't know if they were the couple that lived in the house at some point, a family member. So we took the photo, we put it in the safe. Safe stays locked. It was actually, it was our office, so the safe is always locked. go by. We move the safe out of the house. We move stuff into storage. My sister's moving stuff out that was in the one room. Picks up a couple boxes, looks at the floor under the last box. There is the slither of the photo. No way it should have been under those boxes. It legitimately should have still been in the safe. She takes the photo, puts it in the one room. I find the photo upstairs. She put the photo in what used to be the pantry in the downstairs. Like when you walked in the door, there was a pantry. Well, that's where we actually had the safe hidden at one point. So she puts it in one of the shelves there. I find it about a year or so later upstairs in what was my old bedroom, just sitting. I eventually took the photo, hid it in my wife's car the day we were going to take the car to sell it and get her new car. So we were taking it to the dealership to get rid of it and get her new car. So I actually took it and hid it in the upholstery of the seat, like underneath and up in it.
Yeah.
So if anybody bought I think it was a Subaru Impreza, a blue one, and you happen to find a photo of two people, I don't care what you do with the photo, just do not return it to me.
Yeah, right.
I have had enough of that photo. My sister does not want the photo. We want nothing to do with that photo anymore. Nothing bad has ever happened with the photo. It just keeps turning up. And it turns up when it shouldn't turn up. Like under boxes that have been sitting for 2 years, all of a sudden the photo that was in the safe is under boxes that have been sitting in the room for 2 years. Put it in the cabinet, turns up upstairs in a room that hasn't been occupied in 2 years. But it just, it's part of that house. I mean, this house has the blessings over every doorway in the house. Like most people would do an entry or an exit way doors, in and out of the home. This house they've been covered up over the years with new paint and stuff, but had the ash blessings done over every door. It's just a weird house. And like I said at the beginning of all this, I know we've been talking for quite a while. Not saying this is all evidence of paranormal. Reasonable explanations possibly could be found. A lot of it I've tried to explain away over the years. Haven't been able to do it.
It's beyond bizarre.
Everybody who has lived in this house has some kind of story about the house. Nothing, like I said, nothing on that super violent, like throwing you down a flight of steps or throwing you around the house or dragging you down the hallway like you see in all these movies or dragging you into the basement. But everybody has a story about this house, and nobody seems to have a positive story about the house. Like nobody's like, oh, I loved living in that house. Everybody's like, that house is dark. You always feel like somebody's in a room with you, even though you're in the house all by yourself. No matter how many lights you turn on, you always feel like the house is
it's not bright enough. Yeah.
I mean, I've actually added lights since last time you've been there. I have added lights to rooms, like extra light fixtures and stuff like that, and it still feels dark in that house.
Yeah.
So unless you have any other stories, I mean, I know we're on
we're over 2 hours. We're over 2.5 hours.
Yeah. So
I've got to pee really bad.
Yeah. So I'm
wrap this up.
Again, like I said, it's not all stories. Like I've have been able to rationalize a lot of it. It's just not a house that ever feels like, even though I've lived there off and on, it's never felt like a home.
Right.
It's never felt comfortable. You never felt like you were doing good or it was a good environment like even when it was our office, I mean, I've worked in that house as an office,
Right.
and it just never felt like, even though we were making good money and the business was going good, you never felt comfortable. You never felt happy. You always felt, miserable and stuff like that.
Right.
People who were generally super nice people who like worked in that office and stuff like that when it was an office would have some of the worst mood swings like that that I ever saw them have. And I've worked with them for 15 years and would watch the mood swings that people had in that place. So, not saying it's all paranormal. I thought, a lot of it was just some stuff that, we had dealt with, and hopefully, eventually we'll go back and investigate the house and, kind of do something where you guys can kind of see it and stuff like that. Eventually. I'm not sure I necessarily want to venture to that house right now or deal with that house right now.
I don't blame you.
The house, it does cost me a lot of money every year to keep it. And it's not a house I can sell, or I can't sell it for what the value is in that area for a house that size and stuff like that. And what I would owe, in taxes and stuff like that, I would never be able to sell it. So I'm kind of stuck with this dark, foreboding, miserable home that isn't a home. It's just a building. It's a nice brick building with great woodwork. It has all the bones, as they say in the real estate business, all the bones of a great home. Just nobody ever feels comfortable there. Yeah. So I would like to thank my co-host Les for doing another great show and basically letting me ramble for.
No, dude, it was reliving some great memories. I mean, we had some great times, great parties.
Oh yeah, we had some great. I mean, as much as the house was weird and all these odd occurrences, our friends always were there. There were so many times we came home from working and one of our friends had cooked dinner, and it was just like for being, college age guys and stuff like that, it was kind of a neat place. And, we had a lot of fun there, and just, for all the bad things we've said about the place, it was our college years of, partying and meeting people and hanging out and having parties. And, it also made us a little more cooler because we also had the scary house.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody had to come and check it out.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to stay.
Yeah.
Except for people stayed. Very few people stayed over, except for Hooper. We couldn't get him to leave.
Yeah. I mean, Joe stayed a few times and stuff like that. I mean, there was, the few friends that we always found sleeping on our floor and stuff like that.
Yeah. But usually people, they'd come and they just want to leave. They didn't want to stay.
Yeah. But
remember the time Drew made what was it, gumbo or something like that, or jambalaya or something? And it sat in the fridge for like 6 months, and we had to wash the pot out at the car wash. It felt so bad.
Yeah, we were guys. We took a pot to a car wash that we had left in the fridge for 6 months and just hosed it out with a car wash pressure washer hose.
Yeah, because it was sitting in a big stainless steel pot with a heavy lid on it, so you didn't smell anything. And then we took the lid off of it, and it was pure death. Yeah, and Chad took it to the car wash because I was like, "You left it there. You got to clean it." So he took it to the car wash.
Yeah, but I want to say that when it was fresh, it was really good.
Fantastic.
It was one of those meals. We came home from work in security one night, and there was this like full meal made for us, and we were like,
"That was amazing."
It was one of our friends that we had went to high school with, and we had stayed friends with.
He stayed out there a few times, yeah.
Yeah, he'd stay out there once in a while when he was in his whiny moods.
Yeah.
But I'd like to thank you guys, the audience, also.
Absolutely.
This has been a rather long show, and you guys have been really cool about, kind of throwing up some questions and, some comments. And hopefully, if you guys like what we do, we, ask that you share it with some friends that may be interested.
Like the page, share it, and go to our YouTube channel if you don't mind, and hit the subscribe button. You'll always stay up to date. We're just trying to grow our audience and grow our fan base, because like we always say, whether anybody listened to us or not, we'd still do it because we're best friends. I live in PA. He lives in Virginia now. And this is really our time to hang out every week. You know, we were inseparable for many, many years. And this is our time to hang out. So we enjoy that everybody stops by and listens. And, you know, if we could make more out of this, that's great. If we could entertain people, that's even better, you know? So like the page, share it, you know, tell people about us. And, you know, we'd be very, very appreciative.
Yeah. You can, of course, reach us on our website at www.explorersgroup.com or on Twitter at explorersgroup or on Facebook, which, of course, you're watching us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/explorers.
Yeah!
I did a less faux pas. You can find us on iTunes and on Stitcher and stuff like that. So if you're traveling and you just kind of want to listen to us ramble, greatly appreciate it. You guys are kind of, these are conversations Les and I have had for years. And it was funny because we were actually just saying this the other day. We had talked to a company about involvement in the radio industry with our show. I can't really say much more than that, but it's just something we're discussing. And the guy was so impressed that we do like an 1.5 to 2 hour show without taking commercial breaks and stuff like that. And Les giggled to me after that. And he's like, does this guy realize our phone conversations are 3 hours of us talking about this stuff? And I'm like,
we go 3-4 hours, no problem.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, we talk about this stuff and nobody else hears it. So we definitely enjoy, like you guys, like I said, we do enjoy you guys checking us out. And if you can, like, share, go on that fun stuff. YouTube and subscribe. Eventually.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say one of these days we'll, do a giveaway for, a prize for our people that have been with us and helping us grow and stuff like that.
Yeah. And one thing to remember, next week, Thursday, April 12th, same time, same place, 8:30 p.m. here on Facebook, we are going to be interviewing a very, very special guest that we're super excited to have on the show. We're going to be having Linda Godfrey. She's an author, an investigator, a journalist, and kind of an expert in her own right of the Dogman creature or theory, if you will. So she's going to be on the show next week talking with us, and we're going to be talking about the Beast of Bray Road and other Dogman related stories, and she's going to give everybody a little bit of insight on her. So please mark your calendars. That's April 12th, next Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Facebook. So we will see you all then. Good night, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. Chad, good night, brother.
Good night, man.